1460 WVOX.
It is 8:09. Welcome back on this Thursday, September 20th. I know if you look outside, it looks dreary, but they're telling us it's 60 overcast, 61 and overcast, but we will not have rain. 10% chance of it anyway. And my phones are ringing, and we know who's there. You will recall last Thursday at the same time, we spoke with an author by the name of Doug Caddy. And the subject of one of his, we had the wife of a subject of one of his stories, Gabe Caporino. His wife, Grace Caporino, was with us as well. And I think I managed to get both calls in. Your guests. Okay, Richard, I will make sure I have them. Here's the book, Being There. And there are a number of stories in this book. Doug Caddy's a very interesting man. He takes the reader on an insider tour of some of the most important historical events, in his book Being There, in the last 70 years. What makes his story unique is that he found himself thrust into these events without any action on his part. And one of the stories, and again, we shared it with you last week at the beginning, and we'd like to conclude it today, is the story of one Gabe Caporino. On March 3rd, 1974, Caporino, his 40-year-old married father of two, left his home in Yorktown Heights for a week-long business trip to Houston and New Orleans. Caporino was a 17-year executive with the coffee division of General Foods. The night he disappeared, Caporino spoke with his wife and daughters, asked about a school parents' night, and confirmed a dinner date with friends for the weekend. He never came home. And in capturing the story and in working with a private detective who works in Connecticut, Andy Thibault, they wound up working their way through some interesting stuff. That is Mr. Caddy did. And so we pick up that story now. But first, please welcome Doug Caddy and Grace Caporino. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
How are you, Grace?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm calling from Houston, and I'm here.
Welcome to the program once again. Now, last week, you took us through the course in researching this man's missing, his not showing up. You wound up into some nefarious places. Now, in doing my research, I know that the company tried to disparage him, alluding to maybe drinking, maybe womanizing, maybe gambling, maybe having nefarious contacts. And I know that that was pretty strange. And I know, Grace, that that was difficult for you. And some of it led to CIA connections. And that's where we let off. Gabe Caporino, of course, has never come home. And as you finish your story and refer anyone interested to Grace, because Grace still works on this story, where did it end for you, Doug? What did we find out about Gabe Caporino's missing on that famous night, fateful night?
Well, as of this date, we don't know what happened to him that night. We don't know his whereabouts. We just know that he disappeared. And I became interested in this case because General Foods had abused me when I was an employee of General Foods by putting me in a public relations firm in Washington to be their Washington representative that was a CIA front, and that's why I was intrigued by this case. And I think that we have to examine the CIA's possible ties to his disappearance, because at the time he disappeared, it was the height of the Watergate scandal, and the last thing that General Foods wanted was to be receive publicity about its close working relationship with the CIA.
Well,
and so we don't know what happened to him. We just know he totally disappeared. His bags were packed in his room to return that evening to New York, and he just disappeared.
Where did your trail lead, though? Before I flip it back to Grace and find out what she still tries to do today, where did the trail end for you?
Well, it really hasn't ended. This is a cold case, but it's perhaps getting hotter. And Andy Thibault wrote a book called More Cruel Justice, in which he talked about this case and outlined the many questions that still remain about it. And so the trail has not ended. Actually, the trail is wide open right now, and we're still pursuing it. I'm pursuing it because I'm very interested in the CIA angle with General Foods as to Gabe's disappearance.
Well, certainly Grace does too, and as you said, Mr. Thibault, I had read in the stuff that you sent me, Grace, and from the book, that a contact you had at the FBI and someone you had working on it tried to get the record, the CIA record. There is a record that involves your husband, if I understand it right, and it's still not forthcoming. Can you add any clarity to that, Grace?
Well, what I tried to get is the FBI report because when Gabe's credit card was forged, we had wanted the signature analyzed by the New Orleans Police Department. They refused to do it, so we submitted it to the FBI through my local police department. And after that, I decided there must be a file on Gabe with the FBI. I asked for it. I wrote and asked for it and was denied. This went on back and forth, believe it or not, for 10 years. I kept asking, and through the FOIA, you make an FOIA.
Yeah, FOIA request, yes.
Request. And first I was told the file was destroyed. Then I was told it was partially destroyed. I mean, this took years. And then I just kept asking for it. And, it just, by the time we finally got the file, I saw all of the damaging, slanderous comments that were made by Jack Eisen of General Foods, the chief of security.
He was the chief of security. Go ahead.
Yeah, he slandered Gabe in the file. I mean, I can't even go in. More of the same that you repeated. I mean, it was just, he was a gambler or a womanizer.
Now, you know of no such
thing. All of
things.
these were slanderous lies. So, back and forth, when I finally did get the file, at this point, I had hoped to clear the record. I had to go to court to get the insurance companies to pay the employee benefits. Gabe had many insurance policies.
Sure. I understand you were denied that in Social Security for the longest time.
The Social Security was denied, and we went to court. The administrative law judge sat there. I was there. Jack Eisen was there. She asked him, "Are you the General Foods representative who made these comments, these derogatory comments?" And he said yes. And she said, "Well, how did you know that?" And his answer was, "Oh, just things you hear people say." And the judge let it go at that. There was no question on the part of my lawyer. And based on that, my kids and I were not awarded Social Security benefits. That had to be litigated. And when it was litigated, there were the awards were made. So I'm trying to get by on my salary, my beginning salary as a teacher, and a loan against the insurance policies that General Foods gave, and we were struggling.
Since 1974, and again, he walked out of his Yorktown house in March of 1974. If I may, my guest is, of course, Doug Caddy. The book is his. It's called Being There, but in the book, he's really making not necessarily a handoff or stay involved, but he's having people refer any questions or any information they may have to Grace, and we'll get to that in a minute. Doug, have you, and of course, we're going to be talking with Mr. Thibault down the road. Have you developed a theory in this case at all?
Her husband.
Have you developed a theory?
My theory is that there is a CIA connection here. And I want to point out one thing here, that Grace was told by the New Orleans Police Department that her husband had fled to South America. And when she pointed out to them that he never had a passport, there was no way he had disappeared and fled to South America. And so there are all these stories. These are things that the typical things that the CIA rumors would spread with the New Orleans Police Department. And my theory is that there is a CIA connection here one way or another.
So let's take it to where we are now so that we can move forward, and we'll be talking to Mr. Thibault as well down the road. Grace, what would you like people to do, and how can people help further? You have not put this case to bed. In fact, it seems to be coming back to life. What would you like to happen next?
I would like to have, first of all, special agent, James Gagliano, who is also a commentator for CNN, visited me at my home. He's an FBI man. He came in December of the year 2014. He called, and I said, definitely come. We spoke for almost an hour. He said, I will create a report, and I will send you a copy. I promise you. Those words he said, I promise
and that
you.
never happened, but we're short on time. So when we come back from break, I'd just like you both to give us, how can people help? How would you like to leave people? And is there any destination that information can be sent?
1460 WVOX.
It is 8:23. We are in our closing moments with Douglas Caddy. The book, Being There, some of the topics and chapters. Robert Merrill and Carl Schofer on being the original attorney for the Watergate 7. Who killed Gabe Caporino? That is the story we're featuring today and coming up on the close of. His wife, Gabe Caporino, with us. The Kennedy assassination. The state of Texas and Michael Douglas Caddy himself in Chapter 9. Trump and Russia. Terrific book, folks, Being There. One of the stories he featured is the story of a Westchester man, a Yorktown Heights man who went missing in 1974. It led him and, of course, to an investigative journalist, Mr. Thibault, to General Foods and even relationships with the CIA. Before we go, where do you want to go from here? And who should contact whom? And I'm saying this both to Doug and to Grace.
Well, my heart of hearts lies with General Foods and their deliberate cover-up, and then their denial of benefits to me. So when folks see Maxwell House coffee in the supermarket, don't drink it. Don't buy it. Just copy down the address that's on the can.
What about getting more information? Do you want anyone to contact you? What will take? But will you be doing anything more, Doug?
No, we're following this case. I will point out you did mention that I was the original attorney in the Watergate case, and one thing that happened in the Watergate case, if you remember, that Howard Hunt and Gordon Liddy conferred with a doctor from the CIA how to assassinate colonist Jack Anderson. They had this came out in the Watergate hearing.
I remember it well.
And so my point being, the CIA knows exactly how to make people disappear or to suddenly have unnatural deaths.
Well, I want to thank you. And Grace, I want to say this to you before we go. You have made your husband's life matter, and we admire that you've not given up. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Bob, for taking interest in my story.
Stay strong, and thank you very much, Doug. Great job. The book is Being There, available on the web, fine bookstores, Amazon.com. You know the drill. All righty, we go to our next guest. A busy, busy Thursday it is. She is the very fine mayor of Pelham Manor. Please welcome Jennifer Lapie. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. I'm well. How are you?
Pretty good. Sorry to get to you late. We were working on a whodunit.
I have to tell you, I credit you immensely, particularly as a small community radio station, for having that type of segment. I was a history major and really try to keep up with current events, and I love that chapter, particularly with respect to Watergate. Don't love what happened, but I find it fascinating. And kudos to you for bringing that type of information and the latest books. I did not know about that book being there. So,
and it's a local book. Sorry to step on you. The man walked out of his Yorktown Heights home, never to return.
Incredible. Yeah. I'm gonna read up on it. Thanks to you.
Okay. I'm glad we helped sell a book as we go up on 827.